Hi everybody, this is JJ Long from JJArtworks, and welcome to episode 3 of our podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. So in this week's episode, I want to talk about the story of how one of my old customers, this is probably back in 2005 or 2006, one of my first customers that taught me the lesson of always taking your art supplies with you to and from a gig. And this has to do with the fine art world of my life, where I was still a self-employed oil painter, and I did a lot of murals for people. I did murals in people's homes, and I did murals in bars and restaurants, and this was a tough lesson to learn. So basically, I met this customer via Craigslist, so that should have already been a red flag. But anyways, this customer found me on Craigslist, and they said, hey, I would love for you to come to my home and do a mural inside of my living room. I have this nice wall in my living room, and my vision is to do like a Tuscany landscape with these pillars and vines and trees and all this foliage and maybe some birds, and I'd really love for you to come out and do this mural. And I said, okay, that sounds great. And I believe she lived in West Bridgewater, which from where I was living at the time was about an hour and a half away. But I was like, I'm willing to make the trek out. This was still early on in my career, and I didn't really know too much about contracts and getting money up front, and I was still making a ton of mistakes. But anyways, so I went out to her location, and I saw the wall, and I think it was maybe, this is a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure it was like an 8 to 12 foot wall space, and it was really more of a landscape type space, so it wasn't that high. It was maybe, I'm trying to look at my booth right now, it was maybe 6 to 8 feet tall, 8 to 12 feet long. And I was like, that's probably like, I don't know, like $1,500, $2,000 or something, maybe a decent payday if I can crank it out in like 3 days or something, or a week. So I was like, all right, let's take this on. And I should have noticed some red flags in the beginning when I did this mural, but again, it was really early on in my career. So I didn't have any sketches or anything done for her, and she was like, can you do a sample mural on my wall, like in my kitchen wall? And I just want some vine work done. I just want to see that you can do vines and leaves and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. I'll give you like maybe like 20 minutes of my time, and I'll do that. That's fine. So I'm doing vines on her wall, and she's like, okay, can you change this leaf over here, and can you make it, more of a, I don't know, grape leaf? And I'm like, okay, I can do that. Yeah. And she's already very critical of what I'm doing. And she's like, okay, I think you have the skills for the job, and I'd like to hire you. And okay, great, this is awesome. So let's coordinate schedules and everything. So the next time I met up with her, I think it was a few days later, I drove down to West Bridgewater, and she this is such a funny thing. So I thought like her being critical in the beginning was just her just trying to see if I had the chops to do the job, And what happened was, the first day I was there, I'm painting green on the wall, or I'm painting blue on the wall. I'm kind of doing the clouds in the sky and everything. And then I started doing some vines and some trees and some leaves and everything. And she was like looking over my shoulder, and she was like, can you make the green darker? And I'm like, yeah, I can make the green darker. That's not a problem at all. So, I'm mixing up some darker green and putting it on. And I'm like, I think that this, lime green, I think it's a nice bright green. It pops. I think it looks good with the sky. And me, from my own artist perspective, I think that this is the color that you should go for. But yeah, that's fine. It's your mural. I'm totally open to compromise and all that stuff. I want you to be happy. So I make it green, darker, and she's like, can you make it more of like an olive? Like, yeah, yeah, I can do that, so I'm making it more of an olive tone and everything. And then she was like, can you add a little purple in there? Like, okay. So I'm like, every like decision like she's making, I'm like just agreeing with her. And then finally, after like 10 or 15 minutes of this, she was like, you know what? I think you were right with the shade of green you had in the beginning. I think you should just use that. Okay. This was the whole entire mural, by the way. This was what I went through for a good 3 or 4 days straight. So what happened was, I don't know, and like she had to be in the room the whole entire time, and I love my customers. I don't mean to bad talk anybody, but I just like to share this because I want to share with other people what us artists go through sometimes. I have a degree from UNH. I have a Bachelor of Arts in oil painting, and I've been painting for, at this point, over 20 years. So at the time, it was maybe like 4 or 5 years I was had been painting. But anyways, it's just some of the requests that we get are kind of funny, so I thought I'd share this with you guys. So 3 or 4 days I was going through that, and that's totally fine. But what happened was, and the reason why I'm telling you guys to always bring your supplies back home with you, because I was leaving all of my supplies, my paints, my brushes, my step ladder, my big gallon cans of paint, my drop cloths, everything. Rulers, straight edges. Pretty much my whole entire studio I dumped into her house. She didn't call me back for a week. And I had another mural lined up, I think a couple of weeks later. And it was a good like hour and a half drive to get there. So I was calling her up, and I'm like, yeah, I forget her name, but I was like, hey, so-and-so, just wondering if we're going to meet up today so I can work on the mural. And I think I had like maybe 2 days or 3 days left on the mural. And she didn't pay me a lot up front. So that was another lesson I learned. But you should always ask for at least half up front. I know I'm kind of sidetracking here, but anyways, so I didn't hear back from her for like a week, and I was stressed out because I'm like, I need my supplies. Like, she has almost all my supplies. It almost felt like she had my supplies hostage. And I didn't want to drive like an hour and a half to West Bridgewater and have her not be home. The only way I could contact her, she was kind of old school, didn't want to use a computer. She was an older woman. And it was just such a stressful time. So I took a chance one day. I'm like, you know what? I'm going, this Tuesday at noon, and I hope she's home. I really hope she's home. So I got there. I didn't see a car in the driveway, and I'm like, do I just, do I stay in her driveway until she gets home and look, like I'm a stalker or something? I don't know. So I was knocking on all the doors, and finally she was home, and she came out, and she's like, oh, hi, JJ. And I think this might have went on for like maybe a week and a half, now the more I think about it. And she's like, oh, hi, JJ. Sorry I haven't, have you been calling me? And I left her voicemails, like multiple voicemails on her machine. I called her at least like once a day or something, and I wasn't hounding her, but I was kind of like, let's finish the process here. And she was like, oh, you're here to work on the mural today? And at that point, I was kind of so fed up. She was a very difficult customer, and she wasn't respectful of my time, and I still had a bunch more days left. It was more than a couple days now I think about it. So I was just like, you know what? I appreciate you hiring me and everything, but I'm just gonna take my supplies now, and I need to leave. I'm really sorry, but you've been holding on to my supplies for the past week and a half, and I need them for a gig I have coming up tomorrow. So I'm really sorry. And there was no love lost there, because like I could tell that she was like done with me already. She was like, she already had it in her head that she was done using me. I don't know if she found another artist to finish the job. I don't think it was anything I said or did. I think I was, very professional and all that stuff, but it was just such a big learning experience. So I definitely recommend all of you artists that are listening, or creative entrepreneurs, always take your supplies with you. always take your supplies with you. And a little bit of advice I've learned through the years, because I've lost so many supplies from doing murals and doing these other art projects, and then also from being in a band. I've actually lost musical equipment. I left my wireless mic in Florida somewhere, and we had a gig in the next few days in another state, and I had to have my $500 microphone shipped to like another state, and I had to pick it up from a promoter. That stunk. And then even now with the paint party business, I'm constantly leaving supplies behind. Even to this day, it's just something that where you have so many supplies, and if you do a lot of tent shows too, you know, it's you got to keep track of your inventory and just make sure that you always take it with you, because that's money down the drain if you leave something behind. With the paint party business, I'm constantly leaving like aprons behind, and I've left a dolly behind and a Bluetooth speaker behind, and I just keep losing stuff, and it's something that I'm continually working on to just remind myself as a business owner, you need to hold on to your assets. Hold on to your assets. So yeah, that's basically my story from the past. It was kind of a tough lesson, but you know, I learned a lot from that one experience back in 2005 or 2006. So now I want to tell you guys really quickly about what I did this past week. And nothing entertaining, nothing super fun. I consider this past week kind of a maintenance week for me. And basically, what I mean by a maintenance week is I didn't really focus on any type of strategies to kind of propel my company forward into the future. I basically just maintained the cogs in the machine. I kind of maintained everything that's going on right now in the business. So this week I actually taught 3 times, and all 3 events were absolutely amazing. And I love teaching when I can. And this week I just had 3 really, really good paint parties. I taught for a university for 40 students on Wednesday, and then I did a couple private at-home paint parties over the weekend. So it was just a lot of fun. But what I'm realizing as an owner of a company is that sometimes I still do need to teach and get into freelance mode and kind of, gather some money and then make a push, so that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm kind of like grabbing a bit of money and then making a push and trying to build up the business, and then, get back into freelance mode, make a little bit of money, and then make another push. And that's just kind of how I'm operating at the moment. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to sustain that, but it's working for me, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, that's basically what I did this week. I taught, and let me see. I'm just looking at my dry erase board right now, see what else I got. That's basically it. It was just a big teaching week. And then, this is another thing. So I think in episode 2, I talked to you guys about software systems and how we change software systems, our accounting and budgeting software. And this past week I realized that I do not like our new budgeting software. The interface is just too clunky. It's not a very seamless thing. As far as importing transactions, it's a pretty seamless thing. But as far as just the interface, how it looks, how it feels, it's just not very intuitive. So I'm actually going back to YNAB. You need a budget. That is by far, if you don't have budgeting software, definitely get YNAB. I cannot say enough good things about them. They're just a great software company, and customer service is really good. So definitely check them out when you get a chance. But that's about it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. I'm just going to say, please visit our website at www.JJArtworks.com so you can learn more about our brand and all the services that we offer. And then also, if you could check out our Patreon page if you want to support us, that would be great. If you want to support the podcast, you can do that at www.patreon.com/JJArtworks, and you can find a link to that page in our official website by clicking on the link in our description. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you guys in episode 4 next week. Have a good one.